These are 5 things that, for better or worse, I no longer believe at 60, and I used to believe when I was younger. And the first one, and maybe the most important one, and you're gonna laugh, I no longer believe I'm going to live forever. Now, intellectually, I knew at some point I was going to pass away, but it didn't seem real to me. And I think many of us, as we get older, as you approach 40, and you think, you know what? I've probably lived half of my life. It makes it very real for you that you're probably not going to live forever. And it puts a clock on things, and you realize the things that you've been putting off. Someday I want to do this. Someday I want to do that. That the time for some days is unfortunately beginning to dwindle. And if there's the someday things we want to do, we need to do it sooner rather than later. The second thing that I no longer believe in, and uh, I'm not destroyed by this. It's just it feels reality, and that is I no longer believe in happily ever after. What I do believe is, unfortunately, bad things happen to good people, and it's part of the human journey. I now tell young people, I tell my daughters that none of us get through life without spending time in the crucible when it seems like everything is falling apart. And if you're 40 years old, you've probably gone through a period like this already. And if you're 50 or 60, unfortunately, many of us have gone through 3 or 4 periods like this where we realize that, you know, we're in a very difficult situation and we can't see our way out of it. And this is where faith comes in, not necessarily faith in God or a higher being, but just that faith of you keep doing the right things day by day, and eventually the pain starts to subside, and hopefully you start to see the sunrise on the other side of this journey. But I no longer believe in, do the right things and you're going to have this magical life, because that doesn't happen for any of us. The third thing I no longer believe that I used to believe when I was younger is that I was going to stay healthy forever, that I had plenty of time to do everything that I wanted to do. But the reality is, most of us are going to lose our health a lot sooner than what we think. And so this isn't to put, a wet towel on anybody's outlook, but it's really to give us a sense of urgency that if we want to do things, not only are we not going to live forever, but we're not going to be able to do things forever. I'll tell you, I had a wake up call about 6 months ago. I was traveling in Guatemala, and one of the big activities to do there was to climb a sister volcano right next to an active volcano. And the active volcano erupted like every 10 or 15 minutes. So it was really spectacular. And so it was on my list to do. The weather didn't cooperate, and I almost didn't do it, but I thought, when am I ever going to be here again? So let's do it while we're here, even if it means we're hiking in some pouring down rain, even if it means we have some muddy conditions, even if it means, if I'm lucky, I'm only going to see the volcano for 15, 30, or 45 minutes, as opposed to seeing it for 12 hours. And so I did this hike, and one of the things I didn't appreciate was just how physically taxing it was gonna be on me. I never thought that, "Can I physically do this?" It was more about just logistics. The weather's not perfect, last week would have been better, next week would be better. Which outfit to go with? Do I wanna wake up super early to do it? Little silly things like that, but the big thing, could I do it? Am I physically capable of doing it? Really didn't dawn on me, and as I was well, first off, the operators pulled me aside and said, "Hey, we're glad you're here, but not everybody your age makes it up to the top. And so we're gonna do an assessment after, like, 2 hours, and we wanna have an agreement that if our guides do an assessment and they think you should go back down, that you agree to do that, that you don't continue to climb." And I said, "Yeah, of course." And what they were worried about mostly was, whether your heart was strong enough, but then also altitude sickness. Um, and so 2 hours up, I was feeling okay, but I knew it was gonna be a challenge. It was about a 6-hour hike. So the point here, and fortunately, they let me continue to climb. I felt good. I drank lots of water. I didn't have to worry about altitude sickness. But my third point here, getting back to it, is just my health isn't gonna be forever. I probably passed 1,000 people going up that hike or down that hike, and maybe there were 10 people my age or older, and there were some people, 70 or 75, they looked quite a bit older, and they were in amazing health, but there weren't many of those people, and so that might have been my last chance from a health standpoint to do a big hike like that. The next one is just the role of money, and it ties into the previous one, and that is your health is much more important than your wealth. So I used to be willing to trade off time. I used to be willing to trade off some health in order to make money, and I think many of us when we were young, but, there's always ways to make more money, but unfortunately, once we've lost our health, for many of us, it's gonna be very difficult to get our health back, so there may not always be ways for us to get our health back. So the fourth one is, um, th I no longer believe that money is more important than my time, and money is more important than my health, and I never really believed it, but if you looked at my calendar, if you looked at my, to-do planner, you would have said, "Hey, Azul, the way you're spending your time, you do believe that." And then the last one, number 5, just has to do with friends. Um, and thinking that friends are going to be forever, and hopefully they will be. But, sometimes our paths line up with people and we have a great time with them for a period of time, and then our paths diverge. And one of the things I've learned is I want to surround myself with people that encourage me to be a better version of myself each and every day, right? They're supportive. I want to motivate them. They want to motivate me. They give me energy. And so I no longer believe that, just because I was friends with somebody 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that we still have to be friends today. It's okay for us to diverge, particularly if they don't share that same philosophy, that it's important that we lift each other up. As I get older, and I think as you get older, many of us, we want to surround ourselves with people that give us energy, with people that give us optimism, with people that give us hope, with people that make us laugh. I do like some of my old friends because they knew me when I was a knucklehead, when I had done some silly things. And that can be fun to a point. A little bit of that goes a long way. But I think it's important to have those folks in our lives. And I also think it's important for us to have new friends in our lives, and I do think it's important if a friend starts being negative towards you to be candid with them and say, "Hey, when you do this, it makes me feel bad." And, we're friends because we enjoy hanging out, and I want to continue hanging out. My grandfather was a farmer, and in order for a field to thrive, you have to pull out the weeds. And sometimes there's friends in our lives that we're friends for a while, but if we're not careful, they can become weeds. So if you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine specifically for you that you should watch. Thanks for watching this one. Bye bye.